For our call to confession of sin this morning, I've chosen Psalm 15, verses 1 and 3, which says, O Lord, who may abide in your tabernacle? Who may dwell in your holy hill? He who does not backbite with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor does he take up a reproach against his friend. We're still looking at the ninth commandment as it's discussed in the Westminster Larger Catechism. Question 144 of the Larger Catechism asks the question, what are the duties of the ninth commandment? And the answer is, the duties required in the ninth commandment are the preserving and promoting of truth between man and man, and the good name of our neighbor as well as our own. And then there's quite a bit more which Elder Beeler read last week, and I'm not going to. I'm just going to stick with that. So we're looking at the good name of our neighbor as well as our own good name. Last week, in our confession, Elder Beeler provided a good look at the general requirement to speak the truth. Live in the truth. Live not by lies, and do not let lies control you, whether it's lies that you tell yourself or lies that people in the outside world tell you. The basic reason for this is that our God, the great Jehovah, is the God of truth. God has left us his very word, which is truth. And Jesus, our Savior, is the way, the truth, and the life. Our faith is based on the truth of Jesus' resurrection. Indeed, every aspect of the Christian religion is based on truth. There are few things that distinguish those of us that are called Christians more from the outside world than this, as you well know. The world, which is normally content with half-truths, when they're not just as happy with outright lying. The Westminster Divines, when discussing the truth of the ninth commandment, placed the first great emphasis on preserving and promoting the good name of our neighbor. Just as we are to promote the outward estate, the wealth of our neighbor as well as ourselves, we are to promote his good name. We are not to malign him unless there is a very, very, very good reason to do so. And this can be problematic in the days of the internet and in blogs and podcasts. If it seems like people are screaming about others all the time, it is because they usually are. While this can be a problem for us, an even bigger problem is how we deal with one another on a personal level, especially among our fellow saints in the church. We may not formally slander or libel our friends in a way that would stand up in a court of law, which we're seeing all the lawsuits going on about that now. We may not do that personally, but that does not mean that we cannot damage the good name of another. And once someone's good name, their reputation is damaged, it is usually a long process to restore it, even if the damage was untrue in the first place. The first way we can damage another's good name is by gossip, by talking about them behind their back, by whispering to others, "Did you hear?" The remedy for this is, of course, to go to the person and ask them specifically. The last few weeks of Advent, our elders took a good look at the process in Matthew 18 in confronting the sin of a brother. First, you go to the person privately. Then you take witnesses. Then you take elders. Only after that can you take it publicly to the church if there's still no agreement on the sin. Gossip skips all of these steps until the last one. It just goes right to the last one, which is why it is an unbiblical method of speaking. But you can also damage another's good name just by listening to gossip. You don't have to talk about it. You can just listen to it by listening to the whispering that's going on. And even if you are willing to go to the person with your concerns, you can damage their name by relying on hearsay as witnesses. Well, I heard, says one, or the famous one, several other people also think, and of course these several other people are never named. Motives for these kinds of things, for talking about people behind their back, can include trying to make yourself look better. And coming from a background in medicine, that was often a big problem. Somebody would say, boy, he sure botched that surgery. Or you may just want to get back at another person for a perceived offense, or maybe you just don't like the person. I don't know, Steve, there's just something about you that ticks me off. And even if there is true concern for the truth, even if there is a real concern for moral compromise, it is not always handled in a biblical way. Galatians 6:1 tells us, "Brethren, if a man is overtaken in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted." So, before you take a concern about a brother to DEFCON 5, before you go nuclear with it, you should try to correct another person, even if they're in sin, in a spirit of gentleness, which also means acknowledging your own sin. Take the log out of your own eye first, as Jesus said. Because often the sin we hate most in others is also the sin that we see most in ourselves. But we don't always adhere to these guidelines. We frequently sin regarding our neighbor's reputation, by tarnishing his good name. We sin by gossiping. We sin by listening to gossip and then considering it a good witness. We sin by talking behind another person's back. We sin by not correcting in a spirit of gentleness. And we can sin by forgetting our own sin. We must confess our sin to be able to worship our great God of truth rightly. We must have our sin cleansed in order to approach his bounteous throne of grace. I therefore invite you to kneel with me as you are able, first confessing your own sin privately, and then confessing the corporate prayer as printed in the bulletin.